He's for the game. He's for the Viking. He's a big Viking. He thinks he's awesome.
Hey everybody, this is me, the Viking, and this is Shoudo. Shoudo is a game for 2 players in which each person is a powerful daimyo during the Sengoku feudal era of Japan. You are warring with each other for whatever reason, honor, you just want their land, what have you. And you need to basically show your dominance by destroying your enemy. The board is set up randomly. On the board you will have 3 castles, and each one of those castles will have an army. You will move the army on the board, fighting the other person's armies, pillaging and burning fields, destroying each other's shrines, sieging castles, all kinds of wonderful things like that, until eventually one of you will come out on top and become I don't know, the elevated status. I'm assuming you kill and destroy your enemies, and so once you see them laying before you, you can claim victory. A little brutal, but I guess that's the way things were. But regardless, this is one of those games that a long time ago I used to say I didn't get the whole 2-player game thing. I liked having 4 or 5 people at the table and playing games. But recently, in the last couple of years, I've been playing a lot of 2-player games. Just getting older, people have less time. Plus, my #1 go-to person to play games with is my daughter, and because it's a captive audience and she can't get away. So, let me show you how to play Shoudo. It has so few rules, but it has very, very tricky depth to it. So I definitely want to go over that and talk to you about it so you can kind of get an idea of what you're getting into when you sit down to play a game of Shoudo. And then we'll come back here and I'll tell you what I think. Alright, let's learn how to play Shoudo. Now, Shoudo is a 2-player game, as I said, and to begin the game, I have already set up the board, and technically what happens first is that you get your different clan first. Now, there's 4 of these different clans that you can play. Each one of these has a special ability that kind of breaks the rules in some way, and you'd be very wise to play to your clan's bonus as you're playing the game. Now, I just kind of drew randomly, and I got the Shimazu and the Mori clans as the 2 that I was going to be playing with here. The Shimazu has the Stand Firm ability that gives them a +1 to their army strength if they're ever on their own territory. So that you can see there's these green territories. And that happens whether or not the land is burned or destroyed. And I'll talk to you about how stuff gets burned, but you can see on the backs of these cards it has this burned look to them, and that's how those get. And your opposing players will be the opposing player will be trying to rip up and destroy your land because it weakens your army. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but we'll get back to that. So the Mori, normally, there's 2 ways you can defeat somebody. You either destroy all of their armies, or you destroy their main castle, their daimyo's castle. But the Mori has a thing where even if the daimyo castle is destroyed by the other player, you still get to continue playing. So they have to. So the Shimazu player is going to have to destroy all of the Mori's armies if they want to win the game. All right. So after we've determined that, you get these standees, and they have a symbol on them. These represent the armies, and so you can find the symbol. So this is red player, and this card here, you can see has that symbol on it, and so then you just place that army on there, and I've done that for all the different armies. Now, one of the things each player gets to do is if they don't like where their daimyo's castle is, maybe they don't think it's a very defendable location, they may want to move it, and they can swap it with another one of their castles. And so if I was playing the Shimazu, I'd be okay, because I believe, if I remember correctly, yeah, the daimyo castle is up here. That's a pretty good spot. You could swap it down there, but it's one of those things where that one's not near any other green locations that you want to protect or anything like that. So I probably wouldn't swap that one. But as the player that has like the daimyo castle, this is kind of in the center here, and I didn't really like that location. But you can notice that the shrine is right here, and now the shrine card is a very important card because of the fact that if the other it like represents the morale of your armies. And if you can burn down your opponent's shrine, it's a huge bonus to you because it actually weakens all of their armies instead of just one. But once again, getting a little bit ahead of myself. So in this case, I almost convinced myself to move the daimyo castle over here when I was thinking about it. But now seeing the shrine in that location, I'm thinking that having the big tough daimyo army right there to defend it is actually a pretty good decision. And the same, and actually the more I think about it, since the other shrine is over here, maybe moving the daimyo army and the daimyo castle over to this location would be actually a preferable situation. I'm just going to do that. And so that would be the option you have. Now, the player that goes first, you'll notice that there's these numbers on the bottom, 2 and a 4. Whichever has the lower number gets to go first and begins the game. So normally, and the reason I say normally is because one of the other clans, has like the Tokugawa, they have a special ability. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but unless you're that clan, what you have is you're going to have 3 movement points, and you're going to be able to take an action with each one of your armies to complete your turn. Now, the 3 movement points can be spent by one army, or all 3 armies can spend like 1 movement point if you want to. And the 3 different armies you have starting strengths of 5, 4, and 3. And those strengths are represented by these tokens over here. These are the daimyo, and then I believe this is, I forget the name, but it's daimyo is the big one, and then your heir, and then there's I forget the third one offhand right now, but and you can notice that like the last one only has a strength of 3, and then 4, and then 5. And so what you're going to be doing is you can spend those movement points however you like on the 3 armies, and then you can take an action. Now the actions are usually going to be attacking and burning the location that you're on. Now I'm going to talk about the burning location. There is a third action, and actually that is only if your shrine has been burned down. And if you have an army on your shrine, you can restore the shrine, and return it to its glory, and that actually then will increase the morale and help out your armies a lot. So the big thing which you'll end up doing a lot of as you're playing is you're going to be taking your army and like say let's see, like here's a green army right here. They're gonna you're gonna go after you're gonna try to get to like locations like this one which have a red marker on them, and then you're gonna take the action of burning that location like so. Now when you burn the location, what happens is that the army that's being supported by this field, basically, like you can think of like it's food and what have you, that supports this army. When you burn it, you destroy that resource, and then you're going to take that strength away from that particular army. So here you have a strength 3 army now that's been reduced to 2, and unlike the shrine, these particular fields, you can't get them back. One other thing quickly is that you can't actually, you can't go through an opponent's army. However, you can go through a friendly army, but you can't stop in the same location. So just keep that in mind. No 2 armies can ever share the same spot. Also, movement has to be orthogonal. You cannot move diagonal with your movement as you go about the board. So what happens if you attack? Well, attacking is actually kind of like I'm not going to say tricky part of the game, but attacking does have with it a little bit of strategy involved. So what will happen with attacking? So let me just grab, let me grab this army, and let's put like 2 evenly matched armies up against each other. So here we have the fan, and here's a fan. So when you have a combat, and actually let's do this. Let's have some fun here. Let's go ahead and, because like the numbers that are on the cards actually will represent the bonus strength you have for being in that spot. It can, it could represent quite a few things. It could represent, say, like the reinforcements possibly from that area, the food or the resources that you can have from that area, that sort of thing. So let's say we wanted to attack the shrine, like we really wanted to destroy that shrine, because when you destroy the shrine, you actually reduce the power of all 3 of the armies by 1. And when you restore it, you get that back. But, so let's say we had moved here and we wanted to attack. Now, as long as, if you're the attacker, let's say green's attacking red in this location. If you're the attacker, you have the ability to retreat from combat, but the defender does not. But you can only retreat from combat if, 1, there is an open location that you can retreat to, or that you have to have at least 1 movement point to do so. But combat is relatively simple. You're just going to be using dice. But in this situation, what we do have is we have this unit attacking over to this unit, and both the armies have a strength of 5. But because of the fact that this army has this 2 located there, it's going to actually be a 7. But also, because the Shimazu have the bonus of +1, they're going to have a total of 3 from that area. So 4 and 4 plus 3 is 7 to 4 in this situation. So like say the green player rolls and I got a 2, so that would be, let me do my math here, that would be a 9. So we have a situation where we can actually tie or beat it if we can roll high enough. Let's see what happens with the red player here. So I actually rolled a 6. That's crazy. Okay, so you would have won the first round of combat, even though you've been heavily favored not to. Now here's the trick. You fight 3 rounds of combat, and if you lose 2 out of 3, then your army is destroyed, and you're like one step, one closer step to having losing the game. And in this situation, the chances are that you're probably going to win, right? But as the player here that's playing this Shimazu, do you risk another round of combat, knowing fully well that you could very well lose? So let's just see what happens here. So let's say, okay, that was really lucky. Let's just roll and see what happens. So we're going to roll, and I got a 3. So that means that we have a total of 10, and the only thing that can work is if they get a 6 and they tie, in which case, and ties is just that, it's a standoff and nobody wins. So let's see what happens. I roll and I got a 1. So the 1 obviously is not going to, so now both have lost 1 combat. So now do you go again? And Shimazu's feeling it, so let's see what we get here. As long as you roll a 4, 5, or 6, it's an automatic win. Let's see what happens here. I rolled a 6. Okay, so that would mean that I would win. I don't know. He actually got a 6, but that would mean that they've lost, and this army would be destroyed. And now you'd be able to get back to that shrine and destroy it as well. Now, that is a pretty straightforward combat, and usually you're not going to be a situation where you're going to be that. You would not leave an army of yours in a spot like that where you would open it up to being destroyed. And only as a last resort you would do that. Now, a couple other things I should mention. That if you attack a castle, and there is no army there, you have to actually then attack the castle itself. And, so the castle has the strength of the army that it represents. So if you attack the daimyo castle and you haven't destroyed any of the fields, the castle's going to have that strength, the strength of 5 that it has. You don't just get a free attack on the castle. If there is an army on the castle, like so, you have to defeat the army first before you can attack the castle. So, there is a process that you have to go through. However, if you do successfully attack a castle, you do flip it over to the burn side, and unlike the shrine, you are unable to support that. And of course, then the army that is represented by that castle is going to be devastated as well. So the game actually doesn't last that long. You're going to be running rampant with your armies all over the board, taking out the fields, taking out each other's shrines. You can, if you want to, destroy like the neutral castles, just because of the fact that you can't enter into a spot that has a castle on it. So it means that you're able to like move into a spot to actually get to it. I did have one game that we set up where there were like 3 castles in the corner, like so. And so it actually was like a wonderful defensive location for one of the player's castles, because of the fact that the other player had to destroy the castle to get to. To do that, you just have to destroy the strength of 2 that particular castle has. But that was a pretty rare situation that occurred. But as I said, the game is over fairly quickly. It's one of those things where you have your armies and you have to decide. There's this like kind of ebb and flow of, do I use them to attack? Do I use them to defend? I mean, you have to do both, right? You can't just rest on your laurels, because if you don't have your armies out there defending what you're doing, then the players are going to be, your opponent's going to be destroying the fields and weakening your armies. And so, but you also have to put your armies in a spot where you can defend your fields while using other armies to attack and destroy other fields. So there's a wonderful kind of tension and like seesaw of the board as it goes on. And trust me, once the game reaches towards the end game, you are in a situation then where most of the fields have been destroyed and ripped apart, and the entire landscape has been devastated. But theoretically, one of you will come out the winner. However, the game can end in a draw. If both of you have armies that get knocked down to 0 strength because of the destruction, if all of the armies are at 0 strength, the land has been ravaged and destroyed, and nobody wins, because nobody has any power left, and nobody is going to be able to have the backing to attain control and leadership of Japan. So it's a lot of fun. It's one of those like 2-player games that I really like, just because of like kind of the deep strategy aspects of it, and trying to put together a way to get people to like feint, and you kind of make feints, so that you're going to do certain things so they go one way, and then you actually had a plan of going the other way entirely. And so it's just and one of the best parts about it, in my opinion, is that it is one of those games that lasts about maybe 20 to 30 minutes, so it doesn't overstay its welcome either. It's very fast, it's very brutal, and it's a lot of fun. But let me talk about that more in my final thoughts. Alright, thank you very much for taking the time to learn how to play the Shoudo. I was a little bit surprised by this one. After I read the rules, like, I was kind of like, okay, well, this seems pretty straightforward as far as like the movement on the board and just how to handle combat with dice and what have you. It just had those like little variables you had to play with, and of course they did have the variable player powers thing, which I really like in games. I like having some special power or special ability that kind of turns the game on its ear, and so the other player has to plan for that, and so I dug that. But for the most part, it really looked like there it is, right? There wasn't like this hidden like valley of information that I wasn't grasping. But as I played the game, I found myself really diving into like the different like tactics that we would use, and this isn't a game like I remember the first time. It was like, okay, make sure I move my armies and protect myself and get them in the right spot. Oh, I don't want them to attack this field, or I want to make sure my shrine is protected and things like that. And I was like losing constantly. And the thing is that after the couple of times I had lost, much to the glee of my daughter, who was beating me, I realized that, like, this is definitely a game where, like, fortune favored the bold. You know, it was, yeah, you could get lucky in combat. You could, you know, roll really, really well. But the fact of the matter is that, you can't protect all the fields, right? And it is nearly impossible to do so. And because of the fact that those fields are going to get destroyed, you're going to lose the strength on your armies, and you're going to be less effective. And there's no way you can get that back. Yes, you can rebuild your shrine if that gets taken, but those fields, once they're gone, they're gone. And so your armies they're going to start at their you know, strongest, but they're not going to stay there for very long, and or maybe even not even a turn. You know, like from the very get-go of the game, you're going to have a situation where at least one, if not two, or possibly even all three of your armies will, like, be fighting at a lesser strength, and you'll never be able to get them back to that power. So the big thing is that once the game is set up, because of the variability of the board, you can get some funky things to happening, like I talked about, like the 3 castles in the corner in that situation. Each one of those presents itself like a whole new different challenge and a whole new different mindset you may have to undertake, you know, to do it. So I abandoned that whole kind of, you know, slow strategic defensive thing, and I just started playing the game, you know, like hit the gas and go, and I finally got a win because, you know, I wasn't resting, I wasn't waiting on my laurels. But also I had games where perhaps jamming on the gas right away went against what I should have done, because it left myself open to different combat and different attacks that I wasn't expecting. So because of the fact that both of the players, other than their special player power, which I really liked, you are fundamentally equal. Because of the fact that you have 3 armies, you have the 3 castles, and you have the same starting strengths. The biggest thing is that the board actually changes the equality a little bit, and it actually makes you play differently each and every time. And I really, really like that. I like the fact that, like, there was that anticipation of getting the board set up and, like, taking those few minutes to stare at it and figure it out. And I had a great deal of fun with it. So if you're looking for a really good 2-player game that you can teach really quickly, but also just has that surprising depth that I know a lot of us are looking for, I would strongly suggest that you check out Shoudo and possibly add this to your 2-player game collection. I know I am going to do so as soon as possible. So there you go. If you have any questions about Shoudo, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.